how did the experience building the info business kind of translate to what you do today and think about how you build teams?
Yeah. So I think one of those things that I really took with me, and honestly, what I see with my best clients is that this advice of, hey, use the 80/20 principle in building a company. I think it's at the very least overused. I think what I saw in kind of our success and what I see with many of my clients is that uh, they really they choose the right things to work on, and then they kind of, the word I keep returning to is maximize it. So they do it as well as they can, and that's kind of the principle that I think, unless you've gone through it, your natural assumption is that, yeah, all 80/20 it. Here are like, 10 things that need to happen, and I'll do them like kind of okay. I'll do like all of them all kind of okay, but usually there are one or two things that really really matter, and you need to do those really really well. So that's kind of the probably biggest learning point. On the negative side, so still, I mean, we scaled it to a nice level, but we weren't at a stage where, I think our stage was good, but we didn't have enough of kind of growth ahead of us. So we couldn't really attract, not that we tried, but it wouldn't make sense for us to really attract director level talent. And it was always this feeling that, okay, we have to do it ourselves. And I'm still like recovering from that. I still do that in my business, and I'm getting better, definitely. But I think it was something where I always assumed that, okay, I can't, it's, if someone's going to do it well, it's going to be me. And I don't think that's really true, especially at a certain stage at a business. So yeah, that was maybe a learning, and that wasn't necessarily correct.
Okay, just double tapping on that. What is director level talent like? What do you mean by that, and what are the key attributes of that person?
Yeah. Well, I mean, in terms of salary, just to keep it simple, it's probably in the States, at least it's six figures. In Europe, maybe you can get someone. You can, I know for a fact that you can get someone under six figures, but someone who's earning well, and then typically that's not maybe where most business owners start, but I think that gives them an idea. But kind of for someone with that sort of salary, you expect that they'll take a function, they own it. Obviously, they'll consult with you when necessary, but they can basically take their work start to finish. And that's the sort of talent that in some areas we had it, but we were onboarding those people for a long time. There was no one that we just plucked from somewhere and said, "Hey, go to work," and they did. We never really had that experience back then.
Okay, so just to confirm, if you're, let's say, looking at an agency like mine, you mean by that bringing in a director of marketing that can kind of take that
Yeah,
marketing function to the next level?
that's right. Yeah.
Okay, and it's no kind of oversight, or not as much oversight and training, and it's like, here's your KPIs, here's the goals, off you go.
That's right. Yeah, and usually they will have done it before in a very similar capacity, so it's kind of easy to rely on them for that.
Okay, so going to the kind of next part of this then, and talking about ecom teams specifically, can you just talk through kind of the structure and maybe at different levels? So what does a team look like at 7, 8, 9 figures in annual revenue?
Yeah. So for seven figures, it's typically going to be one founder, maybe two founders, and they'll have what I call a lot of helpers. So people taking maybe customer support, maybe video editing. So some of the roles that they're not necessarily complicated, but they need to happen. They need to happen at a decent level. So you can find someone generally overseas, if we take it from the States perspective, where you can find great people, but at cheaper prices. But that's typically kind of the two functions that you'd outsource. Maybe some agencies around like media buying or whatever the need is. At eight figures, it's kind of, you start hiring your first directors. So creative strategy, sometimes it's director of growth that owns creatives and media buying and potentially funnels and maybe email marketing, where they work with an email marketing agency. Director of operations at eight figures is very common. And then for nine figures, you can start thinking about bringing on executives. And an executive I define as someone who manages several directors. So people sometimes come to me and they say, "Hey, we need a CMO." And then I ask, "How many directors do you have in marketing?" They say none. So then you just want a marketing director, or a head of growth or whatever you call it. So, but at nine figures, typically you already have maybe head of creatives, head of media buying, and then a CMO, for example, starts making sense, or a COO. So those are like the typical, team structures.
Okay. And then how do you make sure that when you're bringing in kind of more senior people that you don't add kind of more layers of friction and bureaucracy in the business and ultimately kind of like slow things down or break things?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that's something people should keep in mind. Typically, though, again, when the companies I work with, and that's maybe limited experience, but they're growing really fast, and they're like, oh, if we could do this one thing. So, for example, I have a really interesting case right now where the company's absolutely humming their digital products, weight loss, which is a great space, but the one thing that's not working for them is actually email. And so we're looking for someone to manage their emails on a high level. And they're not worried about bureaucracy. They're like, we need to solve this problem. Let's figure it out. Let's maybe even bring on several people or consultants or whatever needs to happen for this problem to be solved, because it is the one bottleneck to their growth. So it hasn't honestly been a huge concern, because people kind of realize, okay, there's a problem in front of them that they're trying to solve. Yeah.